The phenomenon of Elijah is something that stands out. An early indication of the way in which the divine pedagogy is at work. Elijah is the forerunner of John the Baptist, the forerunner himself of the Lord. And Elijah sums up in his person the element of what we would now refer to as the contemplative and that of the active. We notice that although around him there was a whole school of prophets, there was not a monastery. They were free to move. They moved where the Spirit moved them. They were anchored in, however, intense union, this contemplation which made of God the prime mover. And Elijah is a model for any soul that wants to act in the Lord's name and be totally available to the Lord, handing over the reins to the Holy Spirit. We notice that these early prophets, contemplatives, were dependent on divine providence. They were given to eat by the help of nature, working through providence, but also from good and humble people who helped them, which happens also in our life. We see that constantly at work. The Lord uses people. These too are moved by the Spirit to help. But here in this interesting scene, we see how this good man is aware of the power of God and dares to invoke it. God is moved by sincere prayer, prayer which believes in the power of the one addressed. A problem with part of our prayer is that we are not present to it. We have become used to the notion that when we say prayers, we are fulfilling an obligation, we are even keeping our promises to other people. We will say a prayer or two for so-and-so, but have we actually engaged? Prayer is pulling on the heart of God. It is calling from the heart. Heart speaks to heart, and the Lord listens well, intensely, to those who pray well and intensely. Why should we presume that heaven is interested in prayers in which we have little interest? With regard to the Apostle Paul, in the testimony that he gives here, writing to the Galatians, we notice how in his case the Lord himself has been the teacher. He encountered the living Christ rather unexpectedly and in his power. And he also needed time. He went to Arabia. He went to a quiet spot where that same Spirit which spoke to Elijah spoke also unto him. And we need time apart in our Arabia. We need time apart in our desert. We find that as with Elijah, so with the Apostle Paul, the Word found strength in silence. So too we can only give what we have received, and we need to receive quietly the Word which needs that space to be perceived. Even on a daily basis, we cannot presume to give what we have not received, and therefore inbuilt oases and spaces are needed within the arc of our 24-hour day. That same power breaks through in the touching gospel here at Nain. A place still there in the Holy Land these villages have carried on, and power is there, hovering over the place where it took place. One looks up to heaven, one sees the blue sky that the Lord in his humanity also looked up to. He engaged heavenly authority and power. The same happened with Lazarus. Also in the daughter of Jairus. And it has happened also in the Christian centuries, in fulfillment of the promise of the Lord, that greater things than these you will do. The Lord is power, and the arm of the Lord has not been shortened. With regard to this particular miracle, there is a command given to get up, and he sits up. It has happened more than once in history. We have had testimonies from people who have actually died and come back, either in miraculous ways or through medical skill when the heart stops. What is clear is that life on the other side is no less intense. We are in some kind of illusion if we think that this is reality, full stop. It is the error of materialism, Marxist materialism, paradise here on earth. The fact is that the essence of our being is the soul, and we take little care of the soul. We do much for the body. And yet, if we realized what the true optic was, we would think well before spending our time there where the energy is not so well spent. Even on the level of success in examinations, professions and careers, and even of relationships, it is linked with this side of that division between time and eternity. And when these things become so central as to drain all the energy of the soul, then the soul is the suffering partner, and so is our eternity. It is important every time we stand by a grave to think about these things, for over the grave a pendulum swings back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and every grave is an open door to a huge chasm, which we do not know well as yet. But for every grave there is that question, that swinging back and forth. On the one side the pendulum says, forever and ever and ever and ever. And on the other it might be saying, never, 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 never. The clock. Oh, little face, unconscious, yet awake. Tick on upon a plenitude of time, and tick again until it take but yet another tap to make thee chime the knell of all thy calling. Call anon upon a soft oblivion. Call the dream of this the morphined soul that lingers on, and clap from slumber wade the alarmed gleam. O gong of sudden looking, bliss and pain again lie in the crack of ages in a sound that came but one more time, that came again and ne'er again. For wound 'twas hither bound to tap no more the merriment of ease, and moments travel far on ticks like these.